Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bigger on the Inside, the new Who Doctor Who Watch On podcast. It's an interview special this week. I am joined by one of the biggest creative graphic design people at Big Finish, Anthony Lamb. You will know his work from various Big Finish covers, including the very recent Time Lord Victorious Master range, as well as a couple, I'm going to say hundreds of Fourth Doctor adventures. I could be so wrong in saying hundreds. I should have checked. But I know he's done more than 300 Big Finish covers. So this is a little interview I did with Anthony over Zoom in which we talk about the creative process behind designing some of these Doctor Who graphics and what it's like working for Big Finish. So enjoy it and I'll see you at the end. Cool. Okay, so the first question I want to sort of get into is graphic design in general. How does one get into that world? Because it does seem like an industry now that has changed a lot from 20, 30 years ago.
Perhaps it has. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, I wasn't obviously in it. I was at uni in 2000 to 2003.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I wasn't studying graphic design. I was studying animation. But then after graduating, I just sort of fell into doing still graphics instead of motion ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I still do a bit of animation, but no, regarding graphics, I just sort of fell into it. I played around doing things for a hobby, as one does,
Yeah.
and I guess enough people liked it. Um, um, and so I just got a job at a publishing house after just randomly applying. It wasn't an advertised job or anything, so I
Yeah.
just went for that. I was there for 4 years, and that sort of set me on my way.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of people now mainly get into that by posting on social media, especially on Instagram, and just tagging
Yeah,
designers like yourself, and then hopefully the word spreads, their work gets shared, and then people do pick up on it.
yeah, it is a different
Yeah.
landscape now. Like back when I was first doing this, I mean, the internet was there, but it didn't seem to be as busy and sort of active as it is
Yeah.
now. I don't know if Instagram's a thing, possibly not. I only got into Instagram myself like a year or two ago, so a bit
Yeah.
of a late uptake there. But no, it was a case of printing out your portfolio, sending it to people, seeing who responded. Usually no one, because the odds aren't great.
So what was
So
that first job? That first.
it was for a publishing house called Visual Imagination. They did magazines like TV Zone, Film Review, Shivers, Ultimate DVD, all that
Yeah.
sort of thing. I think quite a few Doctor Who related designers have been through there actually.
Yeah.
I think Tom Spilsbury, Lee Binding, numerous others have all been through there.
Yeah.
It's just a strange little convergence of people.
So you mentioned the keywords there, Doctor Who. Sure, that's why a lot of people are listening.
Mm,
Was Doctor Who? Was
mm,
there always that sort of? Because I guess like when we've spoken to writers and actors, they go, "Oh yeah, I love Doctor Who." It's always a girl to get on Doctor Who. But I suppose to have the
mm.
goal of doing graphic design for Doctor Who, that's something maybe not a lot of people have. So was there a Doctor Who girl, or did that just happen to be another job at the time?
There's always a Doctor Who goal. I've been into Doctor Who since well, since before I can remember,
Yeah,
but I'm actively into it and making a point to go out of my way to enjoy it probably since 1988. And I naturally enjoy drawing things. So I'd draw a Dalek. I'd make a Dalek out of an Easter egg capsule and stick matchsticks in there for
yeah,
the limbs and stuff. So I was like before I was actually trying to get a job anywhere, I was into creating Doctor Who things,
yeah.
and it's just a natural development of that to try and do it on a more serious basis.
Yeah, it's definitely working. What is it? I think I had a look the other day. Is it over 300 Big Finish covers you've done?
I actually don't know,
Yeah.
to be honest. They're over there, but I haven't counted them.
I just had a look online. Like
Um,
TARDIS Wiki is amazing for any Doctor Who information. So I had a quick look on there. I think it was about 318 different. I'm not sure if that's just Doctor Who or just Big Finish in general covers.
all right,
Yeah,
cool. I imagine a lot of those would be the short trips things, which they weren't a full cover design. I mean,
yeah,
the first four I did were short trips one, two, three, and four. I did scenes of the TARDIS in various interesting or dramatic situations. But the later ones, they were more or less just a portrait of the relevant actor or
Yeah.
doctor in most cases. So they're not as involved as the full cast audio covers.
Hmm.
But yeah, they're satisfying to do anyway. And yeah, I enjoyed all my time doing those. I'm looking over to see which ones pop out at me. I enjoyed the when we moved into the box sets of the Fourth Doctor Adventures.
Yeah.
They were I mean, I enjoyed them before that as well, obviously, but just seeing the spine with the picture on
Yeah.
that Mark Plasto, designs the cover wraps and text and layout and stuff, and he's put the image on the spine, which is rather
Yeah.
nice.
How does how do you go about creating these then? Because I imagine, especially if you're doing like the Fourth Doctor, there's going to be limited ranges of photos that are sort of readily available. So is there a lot of, I'll take
Yeah.
Tom Baker's head from this picture and his body from that one and I'll smash them together and then I'll take a screen grab of Sarah Jane from the episode? Or how does that work? Because I don't think I've ever looked at a cover
Um,
and seen the same pose twice.
yeah, we generally go out of our way to not use the same picture twice, because obviously it gets repetitive and people don't want to see the same thing over and over again. And a lot of the time it does come down to just working with what you've got. Screen grabs are good. They're better now than they used to be because now we've got Remini. We can add more detail to otherwise grotty, grainy photos. Um, and yeah, sometimes it comes down to having a head from this picture, um, a body from another, and just little. Oh, you don't want to mess around with the face too much because that's where it gets really difficult.
Yeah.
Like you can't easily take eyes from one photo and put it onto the face of another because it just gets a bit awful
Yeah.
quite quickly, and you need to be incredibly um, either lucky, brave, talented, or all of the above to actually make that work easily.
Yeah.
Which is so it's probably best to just leave the face alone in terms of proportions, obviously tidy it up and everything,
Yeah.
but not, yeah, it's very easy to get wrong.
How do you then? Because I imagine that must take some time then to do these covers. It's not just all right, send the audio over, I'll
Mm.
give it a listen, I'll work on it. Do you get a script like before as it's being recorded? Do you get an early listen to sort of get the vibe of the episode?
I never have an early lesson, no. I get sent the script
Yeah.
if there's one ready. If there's not, it'll be just some kind of indication of what is required. But yeah, I'll read the script, work out what key locations or characters are really relevant. You know, try and get the relevant people or the theme of the episode should be evident from the cover.
Yeah.
Like if it's scary or a space romp or some kind of detective thing, you want to echo the contents on the cover.
Yeah.
And yeah, I always read through the scripts. I try and avoid featuring things that are maybe from the last one or two episodes, because obviously that might be something of a plot twist, and you
Yeah.
want to leave that in the plot twist rather than having it out front and ruining it.
Yeah. So like the process of I imagine that you make a draft of one and then you send it off and you get approval, or is it this is what I've made, that's the cover, or do you get feedback on certain bits of work?
I do. I started out my Big Finish career just doing the cover, and more or less it was usually okay, but with a few tweaks. And I can't remember what it was, but at some point I thought, hang on, it's a good idea to just do a rough. And so I'd get the bare bones of the cover, do some scribbling to imply things that didn't exist yet because I
Yeah.
hadn't made them yet, and that sort of thing. Just get a very rough version and I'd send that to David Richardson and Nick Briggs or whoever the producer is, and just I like to get approval on that before actually spending hours on things that otherwise might have to be undone
Hmm.
because it wasn't what was ordered.
Yeah. One thing that this might just be me, but I always imagine there must be a slight eagerness to maybe do sorry, pardon me, to do certain stories. I'm hinting towards the return of Christopher Eccleston's Ninth Doctor. There must be a certain thing of,
Oh yeah.
oh, I hope they ask me to come and do those.
Well, I think Tom Webster's got that side of things
Yeah,
tied up. He does an amazing job.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it would be nice to do some new series stuff. It's something I mean, I've done new series stuff, but not Big Finish.
mm,
I've worked on TV Iconics with Stuart Crouch,
Mm.
and I've done a few bits with Lee Binding. I did his episodic logos for Series
Yeah.
6, A and B. I think that's the series that was cut in two, I think.
Yeah.
I did some of those logos, Ringers of Akaten, Nightmare in Silver, Hyde, and one or two others. Can't remember. But so yeah, but in terms of Big Finish, no, I've not really got into new series stuff.
Yeah. One thing that I recently saw, I actually saw it on a shop shelf before I realised it was you who had done the artwork, was the SFX magazine for the what would have been the actual Star Wars Episode 9. How does
Yeah.
that must be exciting to work on a Star Wars thing? I know it's SFX, so it's not. Is it
Mm.
directly contacted with Lucasfilm? How does that go about?
I don't believe they're
No.
licensed for Star Wars. No, I think they report stuff mainly and
Yeah.
analyze and go into the fun things. But no, that came about because Lee Binding did the cover artwork, the iconic for what would have been Star Wars Episode 9, and we chat all the time. And he just said, "Hey, do you want to make me a Kylo Ren
Yeah.
mask?" I was like, "Yes, I do. I love Star Wars." Um, so, and again, like you were talking earlier about things I might want to get into. If I could get into Star Wars officially, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm not crossing my fingers. I mean, I am,
Yeah.
but it's obviously chronically unlikely to happen. So just doing having touching Star Wars in any way is glorious. And so, yeah, Lee asked me to do the uh, sculpt for Kylo Ren's helmet, and there are a few unused concept designs
Mm.
from what that film would have been. Um, they weren't a terribly good look, so it took an amount of interpretation and feeling what might have been rather than copying because it was so tiny, the image.
Yeah.
I think I had a nice time with it though. It was nice to play with that aesthetic.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
So are you adding
nice
on to Lee's
materials.
work then? Is he like already done the bulk of that cover and you're coming in and adding the helmet?
I think at that stage he showed me a rough and said, "Your helmet will go up here,"
Mm.
and he'd roughed out the rest of it. So I had his rough and thought, okay, and there was already enough information in that rough to tell me where the light might be coming
Yeah.
from. There's a bit of flexibility because obviously it's a montage; things can blend slightly, and you can be a bit. You use artistic license to use the lighting that looks good, but I think there was blue light on one side and orange light on another side. So I
Mm.
thought, okay, I rendered a separate light pass for each of those. So turn off all the lights in the scene except for the orange light on one side, so you get a totally black image, but with the orange light affecting it.
Mm.
You do that on its own, and then you do the same for the blue light on the other side
Yeah.
on its own, and then you chuck those on the main render in Photoshop on screen mode, and it adds that color illumination so that they can be adjusted independently.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just render it in one, all that lighting is baked onto the image and you can't adjust it as easily.
Oh, okay.
I do like to leave an amount of flexibility when I'm adding a render to someone else's comp, they might want to do something that I haven't foreseen.
Yeah.
So I like to try and leave an element of wiggle room so that it makes their job easier.
Yeah. And is a lot of that work done
And I
on?
got to
Sorry, go on.
I got to make a few renders for the inside of the magazine as well,
Mm.
like arty close-ups of the mask, which were very fun. And they weren't specifically asked for. I just said I want to do these. I've got these renders that I've had fun doing. Here you go.
Yeah. Is that then
Mm.
a lot of that? Is that done through what I would call the Adobe Creative Cloud, Photoshop, Illustrator?
The post-production is Photoshop,
Yeah.
but the actual CG sculpting and rendering is done in Blender.
Okay, yeah. Because I had a look on your
So it's a
Instagram,
mix
and
of.
there's a lot of Dalek renders. I know when we spoke on Instagram, you mentioned that. Did you mention you're moving away from the covers of Big Finish, and now you're mainly doing these sort of Dalek renders?
I moved on from doing the Fourth Doctor adventures. I'm still working on a few Big Finish projects. I
Mm.
don't know if they're announced yet, so they're not Doctor Who related.
Okay,
Uh, but but I'm having fun doing
yeah,
those. And but yeah, I do seem to be moving a bit more into CG, which again, it takes me almost back to what I trained in. I learned CG at uni,
Yeah.
and then for years didn't really use it professionally. Now I'm starting to use it a bit more. So it's satisfying that decades-old itch that I've had.
Is there then that? Am I right? Because Big Finish, from what I've seen online, I've spoken with my friend Harrison is nuts on Big Finish. He listens to everything, he's got everything, he knows everything. And we were speaking the other day, and he mentioned that they're sort of moving away from like what you said, the Fourth Doctor Adventures, and they're moving more into box set sort of releases now.
I think they
Yeah.
are. Yeah, I think they recently stopped the Big Finish main range,
Yes, that was what I was thinking
which
of.
has been monthly isolated releases. I think that's what they started with,
Hmm.
probably in the, I don't know what year, 98, 99, something like that. Um, yeah, I think they've got a drive for box sets now.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
there like an aesthetic that you have to keep to? Because I know that the covers, was it about 5 years ago, the cover style changed quite a lot. Because they had that iconic strip on one side, and then you would sort of have the main bulk of artwork taking up around about three-quarters of
Mm.
it. But now it's like the whole thing is just outstanding artwork. How much play do you get with what's already there?
Uh,
Nice cover up. I'll edit around that,
do
don't
you want to
worry.
repeat that?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Um,
Um, that that cover design change was, I think, driven mainly due to the rebranded TV show.
okay.
They switched to the really, really wide Jodie Whittaker era logo, and I think they decided it would be good if every licensee used the same branding. And so at that stage, we had to switch from the sidebar, which because obviously the sidebar would have a stacked logo, usually of the it was that blue 1996
Yeah.
Pertwee-esque uh, logo, or a variant of it anyway. I think at that stage, so in the past, that was you can't use that logo, which is sort of square shaped. You can't use it easily in the middle
Mm-hmm.
of the page because it forces the design into a sort of U shape underneath and around the logo, which is what the Big Finish covers had, I think, when they started.
Mm.
And I think at some stage the decision was taken to, okay, let's pop the logo up in the corner with a bar, giving the cover like a portrait sheet space
Yeah.
to occupy, and that worked well. And of course, now the newer logo came along, long and thin. It can go at the top, and you can use the big space of the cover without actually having to worry about whether you're going to go around the logo
Mm.
because it occupies a nice, convenient space at the top.
Yeah, I know. I think I remember when it got on, when I saw the first lot of artwork that came out, and when you look back at what I would call the classic look with the sidebar, and you look at now, you think, oh, there's a I wouldn't say noticeable improvement because I don't want to say what came before wasn't good, but you go, oh, that looks amazing. This new sort of bright, vibrant sort of it's very eye catching.
Yeah. Do you mean the cover design style or the logo
The
or
cover
both?
design style.
Yeah. I think it's just fun. Artists' techniques evolve as they move on, and when you have something like a design change, like we've just talked about, it was a really exciting time because we've been doing portrait stuff
Yeah.
for ages, and you think, okay, so how are the various necessary elements going to fit into that? And then we switched to the sort of landscape wider style, and it was exciting because you're like, oh look, I've got this space to play with, and it gives you a little more room to breathe. You can play with light a bit more.
Yeah.
You can give individual elements more room to shine,
Mm.
perhaps. And I think it's been good for the cover design
Yeah.
world generally.
I know you mentioned earlier that you haven't done so much of the new series of Big Finish stuff with 10th Doctor and so on. I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this, but just as a fan, is there a time period between an actor playing the Doctor on TV to then them being cast as the same role in Big Finish? Because what I'm thinking of is we the only really new Who Doctors we've had from Big Finish are Christopher Eccleston to come and David Tennant. Is there a licensing
Mm.
thing where Big Finish have to wait for Matt Smith's Doctor to be able to appear in Big Finish, or is that just up to the actors?
I'm afraid I have no idea at all.
Okay.
It's not my side of things at all.
We need to get
I
Nick Briggs.
just
That's what we need.
do what I'm told.
Yeah. Okay, so my last question is, there will be people listening to this who are interested in graphic design and maybe after this conversation are thinking of maybe getting into it. For those who want to possibly pursue it as a career, do you have any advice for those? Any places where you think they could get good resources or good places to maybe show their work?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, Instagram and Twitter are great places to show your work, especially because those places they've got fans inbuilt, and your audience is right there,
Yeah.
and people retweet you, that sort of thing. And if you get enough of the fans liking your stuff, that'll naturally get you seen a bit. And at the end of the day, you want your designs to be seen, and that's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, the more you're seen by fans, the more you're likely to be seen by other people who might at some point give you a job.
And there you have it. That was my interview with Anthony Lamb. Thank you so much, Anthony, for giving me a little bit of your time to talk all things Doctor Who and Big Finish. It was really great. Go and check out his work on his Instagram. Just Instagram his name, and I'll also link it in the description below. So thanks very much for listening, guys, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.